Well, thanks for listening to the LCR Media Podcast, where we get to know the pros. I'm your host, LCR Naylor Taliaferro. Today I wanted to talk about, try and keep it short and sweet, kind of keep it light, I guess. Something I've talked about, or at least I wanted to talk about on YouTube, maybe back in the day. Maybe I've recorded some stuff and never made it through the cutting room, on the cutting room floor or whatever, on the editing stage. But it's something that is a question of mine, as well as something that we all deal with in the industry. And that's, what do you guys do with the rain? Do you guys mow in the rain? Do you work in the rain? What do you do in the rain? And it might seem kind of like whatever, of a question or topic, maybe not, maybe you might think it's fluff, but just bear with me. Just hang in there for a minute. Here's my perspective. And everyone has their own perspective. There's different parts of the country. I currently have an employee that's from the state of Washington, and he said that rain is nothing to him because it rains all the time. Like, he's from outside the Seattle, Washington area. So those of you that know, and if you don't, Seattle is one of the rainiest parts of the country, or rainiest states, or whatever places to live in the United States of America. And it's kind of depressing. I think he was giving me all kinds of stats about, like highest depression, suicide, whatever. I could be making some of those things up, but I do remember him saying that there's some facts there. There's some statistics of it not being the happiest place on earth. That's for sure. Just because it's raining so much. Like, it seems like it rains like every other day or something. Whatever the stat, he told me all the different stats because he lived there his whole life until recently. So, it's just kind of not a happy place from that standpoint, from it raining all the time and being cloudy. And when there's not a lot of sun, I mean, as human beings, we need some vitamin D. We need, the sun, the UV rays, within moderation, right? But if you have ever experienced being, winter is typically cloudier and colder, and even when the sun's out, it's not as warm, but that when the sun is out in the winter, you feel better. I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but when it's not sunny for a while and then it is, there's a difference, like obviously in temperature and light, but it also feels different physically. We feel a little more energized. Our mood changes a little bit, and so on. So aside from all that, they had no choice but to work in the rain all the time, or in addition to that, I should say, back to the topic here. He was used to working in the rain all the time. So I get that there are certain parts of the country where this isn't even a conversation. So, but just hear me out on some key points that I have here about this whole situation. So a typical thing that I've heard over the years, over the last 8 years I've been doing this on social media and local peers and mentors, when it rains, you usually do non-billable work, right? Like, you do maintenance and paperwork and all the stuff that kind of like you just push to the back burner, or the back of your mind, or stick in a corner or whatever. You reorganize the shop or storage or garage or your truck or all the above, whatever is applicable to you. All the stuff that you typically don't have quote unquote downtime to really fool around with those kind of things. They're not like super urgent matters, like some flat tire, you got to fix it, otherwise you can't move on to the next property or any properties, like things like that. It's washing, equipment. It's, doing the finally getting to the oil change, that's, maybe only, 10, 15, 20 hours past due or something, obviously that becomes critical if you let it go too long, stuff like that, changing spark plugs, air filters, so on and so forth. There's so many things. And then all the office type stuff, as the owner operator, if you don't have someone in your office or a virtual assistant of any kind that can do some of that stuff, whether it be the bookkeeping or whatever, aspect of your business you need to do behind the scenes stuff, sending emails, sending out quotes, doing sales calls, or, whatever. All those things are typically responses to, well, what do you do when you can't actually physically do work because it's raining? That's a popular response. But before we dive into my opinion on that is what about, what do you, when don't you work in the rain? Like does it have to be pouring for you not to work? Does it have to be a little bit of drizzle? Does it have to be any kind of moisture for you not to work? Or does it not matter? Do you just work all the time? Because in my opinion, in my experience, it becomes counterproductive. Like I'm not all about, I was gonna say I'm all about it. I'm not really all about working in the rain, because don't get me wrong, it does get to be, unenjoyable, like it starts to become miserable when your socks are soaked, and no matter how waterproof your boot. I mean, I guess if you have super waterproof boot, like actual legit high quality waterproof boots, or, whether they're rubber boots or whatever, then hopefully your feet will never get wet. But typically most work boots will eventually reach their maximum point of saturation. And even though they say they're waterproof, it just takes the tiniest little break in a seal somewhere after walking in them, 10, 20,000 steps a day for, 5 or 6 months before they start getting little cracks and water starts seeping in and soaking into your socks. Just a little spot, it's not like the whole boot's going to get flooded up or anything, just a little bit, and it just starts soaking in before you know it, your feet are just sopping wet because your socks are soaking wet. And, if it's cold, then that's a factor. Your clothes will eventually get wet, if not immediately, unless you have a whole rain suit on. And then it's like, what is the point? How much work can you get done if it's raining so bad that you're in a rain suit, So obviously that's miserable from a physical standpoint, but I'm all about working in the rain when I need to get stuff done or whatever. Like I'm saying, like I'm not going to run away, from oh my gosh, as soon as it's the first sprinkle, let's get time to pack it up. Let's go. Like I'm not, that kind of a person. I know there are some people that are a lot more, sensitive, I guess is the best word, to the rain, to being wet and all that, and I mean, hopefully you can find good people that aren't that sensitive to the rain, so that if it rains, in the middle of a yard or in the middle of the day, you can finish what you're doing, and maybe hopefully it'll just be passing by and you just hang out in the truck or whatever for a little while, go take early lunch or something. And then, depending on the timing of it, obviously, and then it'll stop hopefully. And then you can go back out after it. Or if it looks like it's just going to be like a slow, steady or off and on rain, and, you only have a few more hours worth of work or something, and you guys can just tough it out, hopefully, But again, here's now the pros and cons to all that. So any kind of rain. So to me, if it rains enough that it makes the entire driveway / sidewalk / street wet, then it's going to make cutting lawns extremely difficult and almost counterproductive, because it takes you twice, if not 3 times as long to blow any grass, dirt, and debris that may have potentially gotten on there, which is impossible to keep everything off. Even if you have a mulch kit on your mower, trimming, edging, a little bit of stuff still going to get here and there, and it ends up, taking a lot longer than it should to blow it off of a wet surface, because it's like glue. Everything just sticks to it and just kind of melts and just gets awful. And then you end up just sitting there, just walking around, blowing everything forever. And you're like, man, it's still raining and potentially. So it makes it, a quick, 20-minute, $55, $60 a yard turn into a very unprofitable, 45-minute, $55 to $60 yard. It's just not. That's not what you're in. You're in business to make money and be as efficient as possible, especially when it comes to mowing lawns, cutting grass. That is typically a lower profit margin service. So you want to make sure that you're being smart about everything, having the right equipment, the right clients, the right amount of route density, or the right, properties close together to create that route density, right clients that are appreciative of your hard work and not going to nitpick and give you a hard time over every little thing and all that kind of stuff. The right time of day, the right days of the week, all these things, you want to factor all this kind of stuff in so that you can be as profitable as possible, especially when it comes to cutting lawns. So I typically try to pivot out of cutting grass if it looks like it's going to be a rainy day or a drizzly day, or it starts raining, in the middle of the day. And if we're that backed up or we have that much on our schedule and we didn't see the rain coming, like it wasn't in the forecast and it surprised us or whatever, and we just really need to get stuff done, then we just need to pivot. We need to pivot out of cutting grass and move on to the next thing on our list, whether that be trimming bushes, because that's something you can do in the rain. It does create a mess. It is a little bit messier because, everything's sticking to you, your gloves, if you're wearing gloves, or your hands, wherever, so it's a little bit trickier, but it's not like you're not on any hard surfaces typically. I mean, if the bushes are close to a walkway, then yeah, some stuff might be getting on there. So you got to be careful not to get too much things on there because of the dirt and all that kind of stuff, and the debris from the bushes will kind of start staining up the walkway and things, depending on what kind it is. If it's light concrete, stuff like that. But ultimately, you can trim bushes all day long as long as it's not pouring rain, right? There's really nothing you can do in the pouring rain. So let's just get that out. I mean, I don't think, and typically when it's pouring rain, it's because it's a thunderstorm and, there's lightning and all that. That's not safe. Let's get all that out. 11 minutes into the episode, I should have led with that. Let's get that out the way, right? Like, no one should be, in my opinion, and I feel like everyone should follow this opinion. Even my, guy from Washington, they would not work in the thunder and lightning. Like, when there's thunderstorms, that's dangerous. There's no need to risk anyone's life for that. As well as it's typically pouring rain and you can't do anything when it's pouring. You can't even see when it's pouring rain. You can have a rain suit on and you can't see what you're doing. Equipment's not going to work properly, power equipment anyway. Like, so it's just, that's really like going to just shut you down there when it's pouring rain. But if it's just drizzling off and on, steady to spotty, whatever, misty, all that kind of nonsense throughout the day, you can work with that. Again, depending on your sensitivity to rain, depending on how full your schedule is, depending on what work you're trying to get done. So you could trim bushes. You're not going to do mulch in the rain in any kind of wetness. So that's something you want to avoid, is mulch, because especially if you're doing any dyed mulch, that dye is going to just start running off on everything and it's going to look terrible. The mulch is going to be faded and look terrible. And then you're going to make a huge mess everywhere. You're going to get mulch stains all over you, all over any surface that the mulch comes in contact with, so on and so forth. So mulch is a big no-no when it's raining. You can blow leaves if it's rainy. Obviously, that's going to potentially, sometimes I prefer blowing leaves in the rain. Again, we're not talking about pouring rain. We're talking about, off and on, drizzle, light rain, stuff like that, steady on and off type stuff. Where the surfaces are wet. So you don't want to cut grass because it's just everything's going to stick to it and it's going to take forever to blow it off, as well as eventually the ground, especially depending on the time of year, the ground will start to get saturated and muddy and you just start making mud tracks everywhere no matter what mower you use, and you'll start leaving lawns not looking good. You might not damage them, but they won't look good if there's mud tracks all over, whether it's little skinny mud tracks everywhere or big, wide, zero turn mud tracks everywhere. You might even create ruts if the ground gets soft enough and, the tires start sinking down in there. Like, so many reasons why you shouldn't be mowing in the rain unless you're in the middle of a yard and it rains, and you just got to do your best finishing up unless it starts pouring. Then you just got to tap out and come back the next day or later that day if it ever stops. But these other services, again, back to leaves, I sometimes I prefer blowing leaves when it's raining a little bit than when it's dry and windy, because when it's dry and windy, yeah, the leaves are super light and fluffy and blow anywhere you want them to, without them being stuck in the ground and being all wet and whatnot and heavier and making a mess on everything, where you accidentally blow some up against the side of a house and it just destroys the side of the house with a muddy, dirty, leafy mess everywhere. Versus when they're dry, that you could just blow them directly at the house and nothing would happen. And if there's anything on the house, that would just blow off too when you blow that. But the wind also blows those dry leaves all over the place where the wind wants to take the leaves. So it's not usually where you want the leaves to go. So that's, sometimes I prefer to be wet, the leaves to be a little wet, so I can kind of control where the leaves go a little bit easier. But it is a little bit messier, of course, obviously. So you have to be a bit more careful if you're blowing around a house or any white cars. Gotta love the white cars in the driveways, right? All those kind of things you want to be careful of. But that's something that you can also do. So these are just some different, just throwing out some different services that I do, that I have done, and that can be done, that you can pivot out of mowing lawns and into those services if you really need to keep the ball rolling and keep, your schedule moving forward. Maybe, just switch some things around the schedule. Like maybe you're planning on doing some of these other services later in the week or the next day. So you just got to flip flop, send an email out to your clients. Hey, Rain, we're going to we're going to pick up the mowing list tomorrow, and we're going to do some other things today, like, blow leaves or trim shrubs or whatever. So, I say all that to just, share my feedback and my, opinions and experiences when it comes to that.
Hey friends, Mr. Producer here, and I've been listening to Naylor emphasize route density on his podcast for over a year now, and I've encouraged him to take all this material and create a masterclass to put all of his knowledge in one place and share it with you. This is going to be a live 3-week course. Nothing's pre-recorded. You'll have access to group live streams and one-on-ones with Naylor. Every session ends with action steps that you can implement right away in your business. Plus, you'll get a copy of the session recordings emailed to you. Hey, if you want to learn how to make $1,000 all the way up to $3,000 a day in lawn maintenance through route density, then you need to click the link in the episode description. Trust me, you won't be disappointed.
Welcome to Toro Tuesday. This week, I want to talk about the Multi-Force Leaf Plow Attachment. So this is literally a plow, but it's for leaves. So again, as always, if you want the visuals, go ahead and click the link in the episode description to take you to Toro.com, and you can it'll take you right to the page for the leaf plow, and you can check that out and see what it looks like. But basically, it looks like a giant snow plow with 2 wheels on the bottom and kind of like a rake all the way along the bottom. It's all aluminum, and so the rake is kind of like tines. It literally looks like a giant rake, which helps you scoop up any debris and leaves for you to push big piles of debris and leaves where the blowers may be, as if you've done leaf removal before, and as you start blowing, all the leaves out of the nooks and crannies, mulch beds across the lawn, and you're clearing it all off, eventually you accumulate such a big enough pile that it's hard for you to move it, even with the most powerful backpack blowers. So it's a lot easier for you to get the leaf plow, and then you can just push the piles wherever you need to go, to the curb to suck it up with a leaf vac, or into the woods if there's some natural areas that you're going to, and so that's really beneficial for that. It does have a lot of like holes. It's almost looks like mesh to a certain extent all the way around the whole thing, so that it kind of gives you that airflow. But basically, it's just meant for easily moving wet leaves, debris, just big massive piles of stuff from one place to another without damaging the turf. Because, like I said, on the bottom, it's just like a rake, so you're just kind of like combing through the turf as you're moving along the piles of leaves and debris. And it easily attaches to the Multi-Force, the hitch receiver. It easily attaches there. You can fold it up so that you can easily store it on trailers and so on. And it's heavy duty. I misspoke. It's not aluminum. It's steel, galvanized steel, and it's just built to last. And basically, if you think about any leaf removal jobs that you've done in the past, another example, where you would normally be tarping large piles of leaves, right? Because you get to that point where you've got these big piles of leaves and debris, and you really can't move it anymore with backpack blowers. Like I said, what do a lot of times? You either blow those piles onto a tarp or rake it onto a tarp, and then you drag the tarp wherever you got to go. Again, to the curb to suck it up, or up in your trailer or truck bed, or into the woods. Either way, that's tarping and dragging, and it takes longer and more energy. So using a leaf plow eliminates the need to do that. You can just push those piles instead. So again, for all the full details and the visuals, since this is all audio, check out the link in the episode description for Toro.com. I started to talk about maintenance and what people do when it's raining too much to do any of those things. So like when it's pouring rain, it's thunder and lightning and all that. What do you do then, right? And so many people have so many different, non-billable answers, all the things that I said, all the miscellaneous things, all the maintenance, all the organizing, all the paperwork, all the computer stuff, blah, 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 blah. And that is all valid things. I've done plenty of that stuff as well. But here's something I've learned in 8 years. I'd rather plan and be as proactive as possible, right? There's rarely a time that it rains bad enough. If it rains bad enough that you can't work, typically that in advance. Like, it's not like it just sprung up that day. In the summer, you've got thunderstorms that blow in and blow out. That happens, but that doesn't ruin your day. That just ruins an hour or a couple hours or whatever. But when you have, in the spring and the fall and the winter, when that's more of a thing where you've got rainy days, that stuff is in the forecast, way out in advance. Of course, no one's ever accurate. No one ever really knows the weather, right? We have these jokes there's those jokes out there that meteorologists are like, what other job do you know that you can be wrong most of the time and still keep your job or something like that, because meteorologists try their best to predict the weather, but the weather is unpredictable, just like everything else in nature. It's not something that it's not controllable. It's not at least not yet. It's not something that we figured out how to control, nor probably should we to a certain extent. But at any rate, there's always like potential chances and all that kind of stuff. And depending on your part of the country, your region, your climate, all that, and the meteorologist and the weather apps that you use. I use multiple weather apps and look at them and come up with my own idea, my own hypothesis or whatever, my own summary of what I think is going to happen. And I'm actually usually accurate, more accurate a lot of times than the weather people. The day of, the weather people are pretty on point. Go figure. They say if it's raining and they say it's raining, they're 100% right. But I can usually try and figure it out leading up to it, and in that day, like how long is it going to last? How bad is it going to be? I'm checking radar on multiple apps and all different things and just trying to figure it all out. But my point with all that is you can typically plan ahead of time, and that's what the actual answer, in my opinion, should be and is for me, is to not wait until a rainy day to do all these random things that need to be done anyway. They may not be on the top priority, but they're still a priority. Otherwise, they wouldn't be something that you do on a rainy day. I would much rather schedule appropriately, make sure I don't have more work than I can handle, more work than the team can handle in a work week, plan for any potential rain, plan for maintenance, have all that's worked into the schedule. We're going to have, we're going to do oil changes this day. We're going to wash the mowers that day or all the same day or whatever. Do paperwork every morning or, utilize CRMs or virtual assistants or whatever to reduce the amount of paperwork that even needs to be done. There shouldn't even technically be any paperwork. It should all be quote unquote computer work, right? App work, whatever, tech stuff. But still, phone calls, emails, going on properties and checking stuff out or giving quotes to people and things like that. Like, there's ways to reduce that too and systematize that, batch that, so that it can be done regularly so it doesn't build up for a quote unquote rainy day, right? So we're not saving these things for rainy days, because I quite honestly would rather take the rainy day off and let my guys take the rainy day off and not feel like we're being penalized for it. Like, oh man, well, we get the day off. We can't even do anything outside in the rain that we want to do, like on our day off. Like, we can't do anything nice outside because it's raining. So of course we get a rainy day off, but then now we're going to have to, work harder, longer hours, or now we're going to have to work on Saturday or whatever. Like, no, that's not what I want to happen. I want I'm not 100% there either in full transparency, but this is how I feel and what I want to be the every week goal. Like, this is what I want to be the consistent outcome, is to have a schedule so that all of this is built in, so that if we do have a rainy day, We can just rearrange some things if we need to in the schedule and just enjoy that day off. Not worry about being, okay, well, now we have like a whole day's worth of miscellaneous stuff that we've been saving for a rainy day, that now we can do all this stuff and we have to work an extra day. Because think about it. If your guys are working 5 days and one of those is a rainy day, so you can't get that day's worth of billable work done. So now it has to be done a different day, and you have your guys do all kinds of other maintenance stuff and all kinds of work around the shop. Now they're working a 6th day. They're working 6 days now because they didn't take that rainy day off. So I know a lot of guys probably do give, you're thinking, what are you talking about? A lot of guys probably do automatically give most of their guys that rain day off, and okay, now they have to work on a Saturday potentially, and they're like, man, that sucks. I would have rather been able to work on the rain day. I wish it didn't rain that day so they could have had Saturday off or whatever, but they're still getting their 5 days. It's like, okay, well, you can have Saturday off and so-and-so can work for you, or we can get it done without you probably, but so-and-so is going to get some more hours and you're not going to get your hours, so those are outcomes of that too. But above and beyond all that, who's going to be the one that's going to be left to do all this maintenance stuff? You as the owner. And if you're the owner operator, meaning you're the only one doing all this stuff, then that's definitely you. Then you're not getting a day off and you're working a 6th day. And people, oh, that's fine. Survival of the fittest, hustle and grind our lives away. Yeah, that shouldn't be the end goal, guys. Rainy days shouldn't be an excuse to work a 6th or 7th day. That's taken away from your family, your friends, your health, your, the other things that you want to do, and ultimately your business, because it's going to make you more tired by the end of that. By that 6th day in a row, you're going to be like, oh man, even though you weren't cutting grass or trimming shrubs or spreading mulch or something on that rainy day, you were still mentally working and potentially physically, if you're, in your shop or storage or garage and you're manhandling equipment and you're moving stuff around, and you're changing blades and you're doing oil changes, you're scraping decks, you're doing all this stuff that you should have been doing regularly anyway, and now you're trying to get all caught up, that's a little tiring. It could still be physically exhausting and definitely mentally exhausting. If you're doing a bunch of, now you got a gazillion quotes that you saved up for this, that you got behind, now you're going to do all of them and send them all out. Now you got all these backlog of invoices and this and that maybe that you got to deal with and respond to emails, and that's mentally taxing. So how about just not save all that stuff for a rainy day and just come up with a plan to systematize your business so that you don't have to do all these things on a rainy day. You can just take your rainy day off. You know what I do on rain days? I take my wife out for lunch. So now she looks forward to rain days. In the past, when I was the owner operator and I didn't have my shit together, she would be upset she'd be probably more upset than I was when there was a rain day, because she'd be like, oh, great. One, he's going to be in a bad mood. If he's home in the office, he's not, he's just going to be all crabby because now he's got to he's got to work on an extra day to get all the stuff done that he was supposed to get done that day. And then he's doing all this other stuff still. It's not like he has a day off. He's still doing all these miscellaneous things, or he's not even home. He's at the shop or whatever. In my case, storage, working on stuff. And, she kind of dreaded rain days more than I did in some cases. Now she looks forward to rain days because she knows, oh, I get to spend more time with my husband. We get to go, where are we going for, literally, it's a rain day. Where are we going for lunch tomorrow? If she sees it in the forecast, it's like a joke. Where are we going to lunch on Thursday? Or if it, if we don't get to have that fun conversation in advance, it's like that morning or that, that day, it's like, where are we going for lunch today? And so it's like I'm trying to turn a bad situation into a good situation, or not even a bad situation, like an undesirable situation, a challenging situation, right? We need the rain. I mean, the environment needs rain. In our line of work, we need rain. We could use rain, all that stuff to help all the things grow that we need to trim and plants. And, it gives life to everything that we do in the lawn and landscape business. So of course we need and want the rain. It would just be great if it rained at night instead of during the day, right? Am I wrong? But that's just not always how nature works. Sometimes it works out that way, and sometimes more than not. But you're bound to have a rain day. So just think about some of the in my opinion, interesting things that I might have thrown out here on what could have just been a silly little light, fluffy, what do you do on a rain day, or whatever I, ended up titling this episode. But just think about some of those things. Like, I make rain days something to look forward to. It's an actual day off. I spend it with my wife. I don't feel overwhelmed or stressed out or behind because I plan for it. I don't let things linger and get put off forever. Of course, there's things that when it gets real busy, we get a little bit behind on some miscellaneous stuff, reorganizing storage, or, dropping some stuff off at Kanabi, outdoor power for them to fix, or pick some of the stuff up that might be fixed, or, whatever. We have backups for backups. So it's not like we're desperate, desperately waiting for a trimmer or a blower to get dropped off or picked back up, so we can keep it moving. But of course, those things still need to be done. So sometimes those things do get a little bit behind, but I avoid letting it build up in such a way that we've got a huge list of stuff that has to be done now on a rain day. And we're like, oh, thank goodness there's a rain day, because now we have all this other work to do in addition to the work we have to make up for this rain day. No. So that's one of many reasons why I have a 4-day mowing work week instead of 5-day, which I know is becoming more and more popular. I hear so many people talking about that now, whether they're $1 million companies down to the owner operators, saying a 4-day mowing schedule is all that they need, all they want to deal with. Too many headaches if you go 5 days, because then there's no wiggle room. You're working every weekend, basically. There's just no flex for any issues, whether it be equipment breakdowns, call outs of equipment, of team members, that call out, so staffing issues, if you have any, whatever, weather, obviously, there's no room to pivot, from the, around those things or out of those situations. It's just, now you're just balls to the wall, and you're working your butt off, all through the weekend. And that's not the ideal situation. Maybe if you're trying to grow temporarily, that's, a Band-Aid or a step to get you where you need to go, but that should never be the final solution, is to just hustle and grind your life away. That's not going to help you, your business, or anyone around you and your business, or your clients or anything like that. You got to take care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally. You got to take care of your business. You got to have time off. You got to schedule things appropriately, plan things appropriately. Don't overwhelm yourself or your business, your staff. Make sure you're just running your business as best as you can. Just plan for stuff. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? That's an infamous expression or saying that I've heard a lot recently, and I've heard it plenty back over the years as well. But just think about that. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So just learn how to plan. I mean, it's not rocket science. It just takes a little bit of discipline, routine. The more you do it, the better you get. Check the weather. Stay on top of all the stuff that you need to do. And just get after it. But so for me, what do I do on rain days? I take my wife out for lunch. That's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully there was some value here. I appreciate you guys listening as always. I appreciate the Toro Company for sponsoring the LCR Media podcast. And hopefully there was some good food for thought there. Again, this was my opinion. Everyone has their own thoughts, opinions, and experiences. Everyone's in different areas, different services that they offer, different sized businesses, and so on. But hopefully there's a little bit of food for thought there for anybody that's listening. And that's the whole purpose of why I do this, because I just want to share and hopefully help everyone grow like everyone helps me grow. So hope you guys are enjoying the holidays, coming up on the slow time of the season here in late November, early December. So keep getting after it, whatever you're doing, whether it's plowing that snow or blowing those leaves, or if you're still cutting grass like me, whatever you're doing. Hope you're getting after it. Hope you're also spending time with your friends and family, and planning for the following year so that you can get off on the right track and have another successful year. More episodes to come talking about that. So I look forward to talking to you guys soon. I'll catch you on the next episode.
This has been an LCR Media and Mr. Producer production.